Hey guys, DC Network here, coming at you with another video. Earlier this year, Bakugan Generation 3, the third iteration of Bakugan, the second reboot of the franchise, was cancelled just due to it being a muddied mess of a reboot. As I discussed in other videos on this channel, it just was a very weird adaptation of Bakugan where they decided to take Bakugan and try to merge it with Beyblade with the special attack Bakugan that spin like Beyblade do, and obviously the line was a massive failure, leading to the cancellation of the series, and it seems like Bakugan's dead in the water right now. It seems like there's nothing new coming, and in prior videos I was saying how Bakugan needs to take a rest. Bakugan should not come back for at least 2 to 3, if not even 4 or 5 years, just to give the franchise a rest and go back to the drawing board. But recently I've been getting a little bit into Beyblade X. I've seen it a lot on store shelves. It's really taken over where the Bakugan section was at most stores, and I've noticed the popularity of it, and I want to discuss in a future video the popularity of Beyblade X, and maybe we'll do a rise and fall of Beyblade video. Let me know down in the comment section below if you guys want to see me talk about that at some point in the future. But nevertheless, it started to make me think, what's making Beyblade X so popular that it's even getting me to get into Beyblade X? I was never a Beyblade person growing up. I never was really into the franchise. Yeah, I had a couple of the toys as a kid, but it was nothing that I was ever into, and yet I find myself getting really into and collecting Beyblade X. And I realized the reason for that is just the simplicity of the line. Beyblade X is just a fantastic line. The designs of the different bays are awesome, and also too from a game perspective, because obviously there's a game attached to Bakugan, there's a game attached to Beyblade. Beyblade X is really fun to play, I've heard. I have not played it myself. I don't own an arena to play it, but I've heard compared to other iterations of Beyblade, this iteration, this version is probably the best they've ever done. So it made me start to think, okay, well, Beyblade X was a reboot of Beyblade, a new iteration. It's Generation 4 of Beyblade, and it came out right after Beyblade Burst ended, which was Generation 3 of Beyblade. Could Bakugan potentially pull off the same thing? Now, I know what you might be saying to yourself, DC Network, didn't they attempt to do so already? Didn't they do that with Gen 2? Gen 2 came to an end after the 5th season of it being Bakugan Legends, then they rebooted it immediately with Bakugan Generation 3, which was a massive failure. So what makes you think that Bakugan could now pull off the same thing that Beyblade is doing when they already attempted to do so and it was a miserable failure? Well, I touched on this in another video, but I think the reason Bakugan Generation 3 failed was for a few reasons. Number one is Bakugan was obviously on the decline for a few years now. If you look at from Bakugan Rising to Evolutions to Legends, it was starting to steadily decline at the point at which Evolutions came out. They started making a lot less new and unique molds for the Bakugan, which obviously means that the brand isn't making as much money anymore because they're trying to pull back and they're trying to avoid making unnecessary cost. So they stopped making new Bakugan Ultra. They just kept reprinting the old ones, and obviously that was kind of the end of Bakugan Gen 2. So instead of Spin Master going back to the drawing board and saying, okay, how can we enhance the franchise of Bakugan? How can we make this even more popular than the peak that was Generation 2? Instead of doing that, they decided to take Bakugan and say, okay, let's just completely change Bakugan and everything that it was. Let's make it that they spin now like Beyblades. Let's make it that instead of being these different elements or attributes, depending on the generation you're referring to, let's have it be that they have these clans, and basically the dragons come from the Dragon Clan. The Misfit Clan's a clan where anyone's welcome in, and you have the Aquatic Clan for the aquatic creatures, and so on and so on. And we still have the colors for the Bakugan, but they really don't mean anything anymore because they're not attached to the attribute or element system. They're just there. And I said this in my video 3 months ago. I still to this day don't know what the colors signify in the Bakugan Generation 3 reboot. I have no idea why, you can get a blue titanium dragonoid and then you could also get a red one. Like, what's the difference between the two of them since they're both a part of the Misfit Clan? But again, that's where the convoluted mess of Gen 3 comes into play. Essentially what I'm getting at here is instead of simplifying the game and making it, a better version of Bakugan, they decided to try to make it something that it's not to compete with another popular toy brand in Beyblade, which ended up just making Bakugan into a muddied, convoluted mess that obviously was going to lead to a failure of a generation. I mean, I could have told you from the day this came out. I actually made a video when this was first coming out saying the new Bakugan is weird. I could have told you that this probably is not going to do all that well. I mean, I'm not surprised. At the end of the day, would I have predicted it would have failed this quickly? No, I wouldn't have thought thought it would have failed after, not even a full year of it being on store shelves. Like, that was rather quick. I thought maybe it would have at least gotten 2, maybe even 3 seasons, then gotten canceled. But again, that's neither here nor there. So going forward, if you're going to make a Generation 4 of Bakugan in 2025, and I'm going to get into why I think it actually might be happening sooner than later. But if you're going to make a Generation 4 of Bakugan, what do you do? Well, there's one thing that Generation 3 introduced that I actually think could work moving forward in the franchise if they actually handled it correctly. If you guys recall, Generation 3 Bakugan split in half. I was not a huge fan of this feature because I just thought, they don't even work as Bakugan anymore because the bottom half of them don't pop open. They're not spring-loaded. You have to manually open it, which again kind of defeats the whole purpose of these being little toy marbles that pop open into monsters when you put them on a magnet card. If they don't actually do that for half of the Bakugan, what's the point of it then, right? But going forward, I actually think that this could become a staple of the franchise because what can you do then? You can mix and match and create your own Bakugan. Imagine this. Imagine if for Bakugan Generation 4, they go back to the drawing board, they realize that Bakugan, Generation 2 and even to an extent Generation 1, what they did there worked compared to Gen 3. They go back to the core Bakugan, but this time around they add the fact that you can split your Bakugan in half like you could in Gen 3. But this time around, they actually make it so that there is a significant difference to your Bakugan when you actually split it in half. So what I'm getting at is, what if each Bakugan's bottom half actually did something different to the Bakugan? Maybe some of them would make the Bakugan spin or light up. Maybe some of them would affect the way you roll your Bakugan. Maybe some of them would have different gimmicks that would give you an advantage in game. Maybe make your Bakugan more offensive or more offensive or more of a balanced type Bakugan, kind of like what we see with Beyblade Burst and Beyblade X, where you can, swap out the different parts of your bays to make different Beyblades and to make your own unique combination. They could do that in Bakugan, and I really think it would work well. Furthermore, I think going forward, and again, I said this in a video a few months ago, is I think one thing they did in Gen 2 that I always found fascinating is they didn't reuse Bakugan from Generation 1. They completely went back to the drawing board. The only ones they brought back was Dragonoid, Hydronoid, even though Hydronoid was completely different from the Hydronoid of Gen 1, and Garganoid. Off the top of my head, those are the only 3 that I can think of that came back. I think in Gen 4, they should honestly just make it an all-star lineup. And again, I mentioned this a few months back, but take your Nilius from Gen 2, your Preyas from Gen 1, and introduce them into Generation 4. Have it be your all-star lineup of Bakugan, while also bringing in brand new Bakugan that were never a thing before in any of the prior generations. I think that would be a great way to get old fans back into the franchise, as well as bringing in new fans and introducing them to these fan favorite Bakugan. I think if they do all of this and actually make a good game around it that, people can competitively play, I think Bakugan Generation 4 would actually be a huge success. And that's the reason why I think it could actually be coming sooner than I initially thought, because in my prior videos, I was saying that I think Bakugan needs to take a 2, 3, 4, 5-year hiatus before coming back again. But I think honestly, it is possible that later this year, as 2025, comes to pass and we get into the new year, we might start to hear rumors about a new Bakugan. Maybe at the New York Toy Fair in February, I believe it is, we'll see Spin Master come out with Gen 4 of Bakugan, or maybe we'll get a little announcement saying Bakugan's getting a reboot yet again, but this time it's going to be completely different from what you've seen before. We'll have to wait and see on all of that, obviously, but I think the success of Beyblade X kind of indicates to me that, hey, Bakugan might not be dead for this generation of kids. If Beyblade died with Beyblade Burst, and we'll do a deep dive eventually into that franchise, but if it died with Beyblade Burst and came back with Beyblade X and is more popular now than ever before, then why can't Bakugan come back and do the same thing? Anyways, let me know down in the comment section below what you guys think about all this. What do you guys think about Bakugan potentially coming back in 2025 or 2026? Do you think a Generation 4 would be successful if they went back to the core values of Bakugan and didn't try to make it this convoluted mess that was Gen 3? If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to see more content like this from DC Network. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.